Okay, so just before I start going over some of these questions in your homework, I just wanted to quickly go over what we learnt in class. Now, we talked about decimals, and in particular, we talked about numbers in general, and we said that every number has a place value. Okay, so for example, if you have, and let's focus on question H. Now, let's write this down. So we've got 0.427 and we've got 0.424. Okay, so if you remember in class, we said that in the decimals, the first decimal, or the tenths, will always be larger than the next decimal, which is the hundredths. And the hundredths will always be larger than the next decimal, which is the thousandths. So even though in this case, for example, you have the number 4 and the number 7 over here, this 4 is greater than this 7 because the place value is 1 over 1,000. If you divide, for example, 7 over 1,000, you'll get a smaller number than you would if you divide 4 over 10. So this is why the first decimal will always be the larger number. Okay, so we know that. So if we need to find out in this case if 0.427 is greater or less than 0.424, all you need to do is compare the place values of both numbers, but making sure you compare the same place value. In this case, the first place value is the ones or the units, so in which case they're both 0. So at the moment they're equal. So now you have to move over to the next place value, which is the tenths. Now in this case, the tenths for both numbers is the number 4. So far they're still equal. If they're still equal, if they're still the same number, that means you need to move over now to the next place value, which is the hundredths. So again, in this case, the hundredths for both numbers is the number 2. Again, that means we have to now go over to the next place value. So the next place value is the thousandths. Now, here we have different numbers. We have a 7 and a 4. Okay, so the number 7 is greater than the number 4. So that means that 0.427 must be greater than 0.424. So once you have different numbers in the same place value, that's when you can compare to see which number is the bigger number. So in this case, we know number 7 is bigger than the number 4. So this whole number must be bigger than this whole number here. So then in this case, we draw the symbol greater than. So 0.427 is greater than 0.424. So knowing that, the rest should be easy, but we can have one more go just for practice, and we will choose question K. So we have 0.04801 and 0.4801. Okay, so this question is pretty easy because we know that the first place value is the 1, so they're the same, 0 and 0. And we don't even need to worry about the rest of these numbers here because the next place value, the tenths, we can see that there's different numbers here. We have a 0 for the first number and we have a 4 for the second number for the tenths place value. Now we know immediately that 0 is less than 4. So this number here must be less than this number because the number 4 is greater than the number 0. So now all we have to do is write the less than sign. So 0.04801 is less than 0.4801 because 0 is less than 4. So I guess the key point here is to make sure that when you compare the numbers, just make sure you only compare them when they're in the same place value. If they're in the same place value, that's when you can compare the numbers to see which one is larger or less than.